Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's had a good day so far. I have. I've been out with my family this morning, which is very lovely, but now I'm pretty excited to read some Norse mythology. It's gonna be a pretty chill stream, just face cam, me reading. I'll probably do 3 stories, we'll see how it goes and see how my voice holds up, because I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to read. But yes, I'm going to be reading some Norse stories, some of my favourites. I've picked 2, and we'll see how that goes, and then I might go to a 3rd one. But yes, it's going to be very chillaxed. Just sit back, put it on in the background while you're doing some work. I will say I might stutter a little bit, I might stumble through a few little bits. It's just how I am. I also might mispronounce a few names. Norse mythology, the names can be a bit difficult sometimes. I know most of the names from how much I've read and studied Norse mythology at this point, but I still might get a few things wrong. It's just how it is. But it's how it is, everyone, today. Very creepy music at the moment. But yes, this is you guys are welcome to chat with me. If you have anything to say about the stories I'm reading, or if you particularly know any of the stories that I'm reading, that would be interesting to know. I don't know how many people are interested in Norse mythology. Hello, Ethan. If you're into Marvel, you may be somewhat of a fan of Loki and Thor and some of the other Asgardians, but this is the real stories in the sense of what we know now. Of course, a lot of the stories have been lost or rewritten over time. I'm very interested in perhaps reading the Poetic Edda, which is translations of the original stories, but that might be a future thing. For now, I've got my Neil Gaiman Norse mythology book, which I love to death, and I have chosen 2 stories so far. So, one of the stories is The Children of Loki, a very popular one, and the other one is The Death of Balder. Now, the reason I chose this one is because recently I went to go and see in York a play put on about the Coppergate woman, which, if you don't know, the Coppergate woman is a Viking Age lady who was found in Coppergate, buried by the river. And they were like, let's make a story about this, but base it on Norse mythology, because if you don't know, York is known for being the Viking capital. It was the capital way back, and we have the Jorvik Centre and all that type of stuff when the Vikings used to be here. But yeah, so who's in chat right now? Let's see, what would you prefer to read first? The Death of Balder or The Children of Loki? Try and get comfy. Also try not to knock my keyboard while I do this. I thought about pulling it up on screen so I could be looking at the screen, but I thought it's nicer to have the actual book in my hands while I'm reading, I thought. Very creepy music. Children of Loki. Okay, we'll read that one first. So yes, again, apologies if I stutter, if I mumble over certain words. I will try and pronounce everything. I'm very excited to do this. I've always wanted to do like proper reading streams. So yes, settle in, get yourself a cup of tea or a drink, something to eat, and just chill with me. So. Let's find some good music for this. What do you think? This music? Let's go with this one. Trying to find copyright-free, cool music, very hard. Okay. The Children of Loki. Loki was handsome, and he knew it. People wanted to be like him. They wanted to believe him. But he was undependable and self-centered at best, mischievous or evil at worst. He married a woman named Sigyn, who had been happy and beautiful when Loki courted her and married her, but now always looked like she was expecting bad news. She bore him a son, Narfi, and shortly after, another son, Vali. Sometimes Loki would vanish for long periods and not return, and then Sigyn would look like she was expecting the very worst news of all, but always Loki would come back to her, looking shifty and guilty, and also as if he was very proud of himself indeed. 3 times he went away, 3 times he eventually returned. The 3rd time Loki returned to Asgard, Odin called Loki to him. "I have had a dream," said the wise old god. "You have children. I have a son, Narfi, a good boy, although I must confess he does not always listen to his father, and another son, Vali, obedient and restrained. Not them. You have 3 other children, Loki. You have been sneaking off to spend your days and your nights in the land of the giants, with Angbodr, the giantess, and she has borne you 3 children. I have seen them in my eye of minds as I sleep, and my vision tells me they will be the greatest foes of the gods in the times that is to come." Loki said nothing. He tried to look ashamed and succeeded simply in looking pleased with himself. Odin called the gods to him, with Tyr and Thor at their head, and he told them they would be journeying far to Jotunheim, to Giant Land, to bring Loki's children to Asgard. The gods travelled to the land of the giants, battling many dangers, until they reached Angbodr's keep. She was not expecting them, and she had left her children playing together in a great hall. The gods were shocked when they saw Loki and Angbodr's children. They were not deterred by them. They seized the children, and they bound them. They carried the oldest between them, tied to a strip of a tree. And they muzzled the second child with a muzzle made of a knotted willow, and they put a rope around its neck like a leash, while the 3rd child walked beside them, gloomy and disturbing. Those on the right side of the 3rd child saw a beautiful young girl, while those on the left tried not to look at her, for they saw a dead girl, her skin and flesh rotted black, walking in their midst. "Haven't you noticed?" Thor asked Tyr, on the 3rd day of their journey back from the lands of the frost giants. They had camped for the night in a small clearing, and Tyr was scratching the furry neck of Loki's 2nd child with his huge right hand. "What? They're not following us, the giants. Not even the creature's mother has come after us, as if they want us to take Loki's children out of Jotunheim." "That is foolish talk," said Tyr, but as he said it, even though the fire was warm, he shivered. 2 more days of hard travelling and they were in Odin's hall. "These are the children of Loki," said Tyr shortly. The first of Loki's children was tied to a pine tree and was now longer than the pine tree it was tied to. It was called Jotungeir, and it was a serpent. "It had grown many feet in the days we carried it back," said Tyr. Thor said, "Careful, it can spit burning black acid. It spat its poison at me, but it missed. That's why we tied its head to the tree like that. It is a child, said Odin. It is still growing, and we will send it somewhere where it can harm nobody. Odin took the serpent to the shore of the sea that lie beyond all the lands, the sea that encircles Midgard. And there on the shore he freed Jotungeir, and he watched it slither and slip beneath the waves, and swam away in loops and circles. Odin watched it with his one eye until it was lost on the horizon, and he wondered if he had done the right thing. He did not know. He had done as his dreams had told him, but dreams know more than they reveal, even to the wisest of gods. The serpent would grow beneath the grey waters of the world's ocean, grow until it encircled the earth. Folk would call Jotungeir the Midgard serpent. Odin returned to the great hall, and he ordered Loki's daughter to step forward. He stared at the girl. On the right side of her face, her cheek was pink and white, her eyes were the green of Loki's, her lips were full and carmine. On her left side, her face was blotched and strained, swollen in the bruise of death, her sightless eyes rotted and pale, her lipless mouth widened and stretched over skull-brown teeth. "What do they call you, girl?" asked the All-Father. "They call me Hel," she said, "if that pleases you, All-Father." "You are a polite child," said Odin. "I'll give you that." Hel said nothing, only looked at him with her single green eye, sharp as an ice chip, and her pallid eye, dull and spoiled and dead. He saw no fear in her. "Are you alive?" he asked the girl, "or are you a corpse?" "I am only myself, Hel, daughter of Amboda and of Loki," she said, "and I like the dead best of all. They are simple things, and they talk to me with respect. The living look at me with repulsion." Odin contemplated the girl, and he remembered his dreams. Then Odin said, "This child will be the ruler of the deepest of the darkest places, and the ruler of the dead of all the 9 worlds. She will be queen of those poor souls who die in unworthy ways, a disease, of old age, of accident or in childbirth. Warriors who die in battle will always come here, to Valhalla, but the dead who die in other ways will be her folk, to attend her in her darkness." For the first time since she'd been taken from her mother, the girl, Hel, smiled, with half a mouth. Odin took Hel to the lightless world, and he showed her the immense halls in which she would receive her subjects, and watched as she named her possessions. "I will call my bowl Hunger," said Hel. She picked up a knife. "This is called Famine, and my bed is called Sickbed." The 2 of Loki's children with Angbodr dealt with. Odin, one in the ocean and one in the darkness beneath the earth. But what to do with the third? When they had brought the third and smallest of Loki's children back from the land of giants, it had been puppy-sized, and Tyr had scratched its neck and played with it, removing its willowed muzzle. It was a wolf cub, grey and black, with eyes the colour of dark amber. The wolf cub ate its meat raw, but it spoke as a man would speak, in the language of men and the gods, and it was proud. The little beast was called Fenrir. It too was growing fast. One day it was the size of a wolf, and the next the size of a cave bear, then the next the size of a great elk. The gods were intimidated by it, all except Tyr, and he still played with it and romped with it, and he alone fed it. And each day the beast ate more than the next, and each day it grew and grew, becoming more fiercer and stronger. Odin watched the wolf child grow with foreboding, for in his dreams the wolf had been there at the end of everything, and the last thing Odin had seen in his dreams of the future were the topaz eyes and the sharp white teeth of Fenris wolf. The god had a council and resolved at that council that they would bind Fenrir. They crafted heavy chains and shackles in the forges, and they carried the shackles to Fenrir. "Here," said the gods, as if suggesting a new game. "You have grown so fast, Fenrir, it is time to test your strength. We have the heaviest chains and shackles. Do you think you can break them?" "I think I can," said Fenrir. Bind me. The gods wrapped the huge chains around Fenrir and shackled his paws. He waited, motionless, while they did this. The gods smiled at each other as they chained the enormous wolf. Now, shouted Thor. Fenrir strained and stretched the muscles of his legs, and the chains snapped like dry twigs. The great wolf howled to the moon, a howl of triumph and joy. I broke your chains, he said. Do not forget this. We will not forget, said the gods. The next day Tyr went to take the wolf his meat. I broke the fetters, said Fenrir. I broke them easily. You did, said Tyr. Do you think they will test me again? I grow and I grow stronger every day. They will test you again. I would wager my right hand on it, said Tyr. The wolf was still growing, and the gods were in the smithies, forging a new set of chains. Each link in the chain was too heavy for a normal man to lift. The metal of the chain was the strongest metal of the gods. Iron from the earth mixed with iron from the fallen sky. They called the chains Dormir. The gods hauled the chains to where Fenrir slept. The wolf opened his eyes. Again, he said. If you can escape from these chains, said the gods, then your renown and your strength will be known to all the world. Glory will be yours. If chains like this cannot hold you, then your strength will be greater than any of the gods or giants. Fenrir nodded at this, and he looked at the chains called Dormir, bigger than any chains that had ever been, stronger than the strongest of bonds. There is no glory without danger, said the wolf after a moment. I believe I can break these bindings. Chain me up. They chained him. The great wolf stretched and strained, but the chains held. The gods looked at each other, and there was a beginning of triumph in their eyes. But now the huge wolf began to twist and writhe, to kick out its legs and strain in every muscle and every sinew. His eyes flashed and his teeth flashed forward. He growled as he writhed, struggled with all his might. The gods moved back involuntarily, and it was good they did, for the chains fractured and they broke with such violence that the pieces were thrown into the air, and for years to come the gods would find lumps of the shattered shackles embedded in sides of huge trees or the sides of mountains. Yes, shouted Fenrir, and he howled in victory like a wolf and like a man. The gods had watched the struggle. It did not seem, the wolf observed, to delight in his victory, not even Tyr. Fenrir, Loki's child, brooded on this, and of other matters, and Fenrir Wolf grew hungrier and hungrier with every day that passed. Odin brooded and he pondered as he thought. All the wisdom of Mirmir's well was his, and the wisdom he had gained from hanging from the world tree, a sacrifice to himself. At last he called the light elf Skinrir, Freya's messenger, to his side, and he described the chain called Gilfim. Skinrir rode his horse across the rainbow bridge to Skarvenhelm with instructions to dwarves to create a chain like any other. When the dwarves had finished their craft, they gave Skinrir a wooden box. Inside the box was something that looked like a long silken ribbon, soft and smooth to the touch. It was almost transparent and weighed next to nothing. Skinner rode back to Asgard with his box at his side, and he arrived late in the evening after the sun had set. He showed the gods what he had brought back from the workshop of the dwarves, and they were amazed to see it. The gods went together to the shore of the Black Lake, and they called Fenrir by name. He came at a run, as a dog would, and the gods marvelled at how big and powerful he was. What's happening? Asked the wolf. We've obtained the strongest bond of all, they told him. Not even you will be able to break it. The wolf puffed up his chest. I can bust any chain, he told them proudly. Odin opened his hand to display Gilfmir. It shimmered in the moonlight. This, said the wolf, that is nothing. The gods pulled at it to show how strong it was. We cannot break it, they told him. The wolf squinted at the silken band that they held between them, glimmering like a snail's trail or the moonlight on the waves, and he turned away, uninterested. No, he said, bring me real chains, real fetter, heavy ones, huge ones, and let me show my strength. This is Gilfmir, said Odin. It is stronger than any chains or fetters. Are you scared, Fenrir? Scared? Not at all. What happens if I break a ribbon like that? Do you think I will be renowned and fame? That people will gather and say, do you know that how powerful and strong Fenrir Wolf is? He is so powerful, he broke a silken ribbon. There will be no glory in it. Are you scared? Said Odin. The great beast sniffed the air. I scent treachery and trickery, said the wolf, his amber eyes flashing in the moonlight. And although I think your Gylfmere may only be a ribbon, I will not consent to be tied with it. You who broke the strongest, biggest chains that ever were, you are scared by this band, said Thor. I am scared of nothing, growled the wolf. I think it is rather you, little creatures, who are scared of me. Odin scratched his bearded chin. You are not stupid, Fenrir. There is no trickery here, but I understand your reluctance. It would take a brave warrior to consent to being tied with a bond he could not break. I assure you, as father of the gods, that if you cannot break a band like this, a veritable silken ribbon as you say, then we gods will see no reason to be afraid of you, and we will set you free and let you go your own way. A long growl from the wolf. You lie, old father. You lie in the way that some folk breathe. If you were to tie me up in that bond and I could not escape from, I do not believe you would free me. I think you would leave me here. I think you have plans to abandon me and betray me. I do not consent to that ribbon being placed on me. Fine words, and brave words, said Odin. Words to cover your fear at being proved a coward, Fenris Wolf. You are afraid of being tied with a silken ribbon, no need for explanation. The wolf's tongue lolled from its mouth, and he laughed, showing his sharp teeth, the size of a man's arm. Rather than question my courage, I challenge you to prove there is no treachery planned. You can tie me up if you will place your hand in my mouth. I will gently close my teeth upon it, but I will not bite down. If there is no treachery afoot, I will open my mouth when I have escaped the ribbon, or when you have freed me, and the hand will remain unharmed. There, I swear it. I have a hand in my mouth, you can tie me with your ribbon, so whose hand will it be? The gods looked at each other. Baldur looked at Thor. Hemindar looked at Odin. Honir looked at Frey, but none of them had moved. Then Tyr, Odin's son, sighed and stepped forward and raised his right hand. I will put my hand in your mouth, Fenrir, said Tyr. Fenrir laid on his side, and Tyr put his right hand into Fenrir's mouth, just as he had done with Fenrir as a puppy when they had played together. Fenrir closed his teeth gently until they held Tyr's hand at the wrist without breaking the skin, and closed his eyes. The gods bound him with Gylfir, a shimmering snail's trail wrapped the enormous wolf, tying his legs, rendering him immobile. There, said Odin. Now, Fenrir Wolf, break your bonds. Show us how powerful you are. The wolf stretched and struggled. It pushed and strained. Every nerve and muscle tried to snap the ribbon. But with every struggle, the task seemed harder, and with every strain, the glimmering ribbon became stronger. At first, the gods sniggered. Then they chuckled. And finally, when they were certain that the beast had been immobilized, and they were in no danger, the gods laughed. Only Tyr was silent. He did not laugh. He could feel the sharpness of Fenrir Wolf's teeth against his wrist, the wetness and warmness of Fenrir's tongue against his palm and his fingers. Fenrir stopped struggling. He lay there, unmoving. If the gods were going to free him, they would do it now. But the gods only laughed harder. Thor's booming gorfs, each louder than a thunderclap, mingled with Odin's dry laughter, and with Baldur's belly laughter. Fenrir looked at Tyr, and Tyr looked at him bravely, and then Tyr closed his eyes and nodded. Do it, he whispered. Fenrir bit down on Tyr's wrist. Tyr made no sound. He simply wrapped his left hand around the stump of his right and squeezed it as hard as he could to slow the splurts of blood to oozing. Fenrir watched the gods take one end of Gylfmere and thread it through a stone as big as a mountain and fasten it under the ground. Then he watched as they took another rock and used it to hammer the stone deeper into the ground. deeper than the ocean. Treacherous Odin, called the wolf, if you had not lied to me, I would have been a friend to the gods. But your fear has betrayed you. I will kill you, father of the gods. I will wait until the end of all things, and I will eat the sun and I will eat the moon. But I will take the most pleasure in killing you. The gods were careful not to get within reach of Fenrir's jaws, but as they were driving the rock deeper, Fenrir twisted and snapped at them. The god nearest, with presence of mind, thrust his sword into the roof of Fenrir Wolf's mouth. The hilt of the sword jammed in the wolf's jaw, wedging the jaw open and preventing it from ever closing. The wolf growled, and saliva poured from its mouth, forming a river. If you did not know it was a wolf, you might have thought it was a small mountain with a river flowing from a cave mouth. The gods left that place, where the river of saliva flowed, into a dark lake, and they did not speak. But once they were far enough away, they laughed some more, and clapped each other on the back, and they smiled huge smiles for those who believed they had done something very clever indeed. Tyr did not smile, and he did not laugh. He bound the stump of his wrist tightly with a cloth, and he walked besides the gods back to Asgard, and he kept his own counsel. These, then, were the children of Loki. Did we enjoy? That is one of my favourites. I find it very interesting how sympathetic you can be towards the children of Loki, but also I think it's very telling that it's a story on not letting your fear become you. If Odin hadn't decided to take the children and to bind them away, perhaps they would not be against him in the future, but he let his fear overtake him, and I guess that is a story in not looking into the future. Sometimes knowing the future can be the worst thing. That was a story moment, Ethan. It is one of my favourite stories. Take a small break to rest my throat. What was the other story? Ah, okay. Ooh. Shaky desk. Right. So the next one is the death of Baldur, which I'll read in a moment. Are we enjoying the story so far? I have to say my throat is getting very sore, so I will read this one more and then maybe I'll do a little bit of just talking about Norse mythology at the end. To save my throat, because it's very hard to continuously talk. My headphones are slipping off. And remember how long this one is. This one's a bit longer, I'm pretty sure. Okay. So this one is the death of Baldur. Nothing there is does not love the sun. It gives us warmth and life, and it melts the bitter snow and ice of winter. It makes plants grow and flowers bloom. It gives us the long summer evenings when the darkness never comes. It saves us from the bitter days of midwinter, when the darkness is broken only for a handful of hours and the sun is cold and distant, like the pale eye of a corpse. Baldir's face shone like the sun. He was so beautiful that he illuminated any place he entered. Baldir was Odin's second son, and he was loved by his father, and by all things. He was the wisest, and the mildest, and the most eloquent of all of the Aesir. He was pronounced judgment, and he would be impressed by his wisdom and his fairness. His home, the hall they called Beradir, was a place of joy and music and knowledge. Baldir's wife was Nanna, and he loved her, and only her. Their son, Forset, was growing to become as wiser judge as his father. There was nothing wrong with Baldir's life or his world, save only one thing. Baldir had bad dreams. He dreamed of the world's ending, and of the sun and the moon being eaten by a wolf. He dreamed of pain and death without end. He dreamed of darkness, of being trapped. Brothers slain by brothers in his dream, and nobody could trust anyone else. In his dream, a new age would come upon the world, an age of storm and of murder. Baldir would wake from these dreams in tears, troubled beyond all telling. Baldir went to the gods and he told them of his nightmares. None of them knew what to make of the dreams. They were all too troubled. All but one of them. When Loki heard Baldir talk of his bad dreams, Loki smiled. Odin set out to find the cause of his son's dreams, and he pulled on his grey cloak and his broad-brimmed hat, and when folk asked his name, he said he was a wanderer, son of a warrior. Nobody knew the answers to his questions, but they told him of a seer, a wise woman, who understood all dreams. She could help him, they said, but she was long dead. At the end of the world was the wise woman's grave. Beyond it, to the east, was the realm of the dead, who had not died in battle, ruled over by Hel, Loki's daughter, by the giantess Angboda. Odin travelled east, and he stopped when he reached the grave. The All-Father was the wisest of the Aesir, and he given his eye for more wisdom. He stood at the grave at the end of the world, and in this place he invoked the darkest of all runes, and he called on old powers long forgotten. He burned things, and he said things, and he charmed and he demanded. The storm whipped his face, and the wind died. And a woman stood before him on the other side of the fire, her face in shadows. It was a hard journey to come back from the land of the dead, she told him. I had been buried here for such a long time. Rain and snow had fallen on me. I do not know you, man who raised me. What do they call you? They call me Wanderer, said Odin. Warrior was my father. Tell me news from Hel. The dead woman stared at him. Baldir is coming to us, she told him. We are brewing mead for him. There will be despair in the world above, but in the world of the dead there will only be rejoicing. Odin asked her who would kill Baldir, and her answer shocked him. He asked who would avenge Baldir's death, and her answer puzzled him. He asked who would mourn Baldir, and she stared at him from across her own grave, as if she was seeing him for the first time. You are not Wanderer, she said. Her dead eyes flickered, and there was emotion on her face. You are Odin, who sacrificed himself by hanging himself so long ago. And you are not a wise woman. You are she who in life was Angboda, Loki's lover, mother to Hel, to Jotungeir, and to the Midgard serpent, and to Fenrir wolf, said Odin. The dead giantess smiled. Ride home, little Odin, she told him. Run away, run back to your halls. No one will come to see you. No one will come to see me now until my husband, Loki, escapes from his bonds and returns to me. And Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, tears asunder, approaches. And then there was nothing in that place but shadows. Odin left with his heart heavy, and there was much to think about. Even the gods could not change destiny. And if he was to save Baldir, he would have to come to it with cunning. and he would need help. There was one other thing that disturbed him, that the giantess had said. Why did she talk about Loki escaping his bonds? Wondered Odin. Loki was not bound. And then he thought, not yet. Odin kept counsel, but he told Frigg, his wife, mother of the gods, that Baldur's dreams were true dreams, and they were close, and there were those who were, and that there were those who meant their favourite son harm. Frigg, at that, practical as ever, thought, I do not believe it. I shall not believe it. There is nothing that despises the sun and the warmth that life brings. And by the same token, there is nothing that shall hate my son. She set out to ensure that it was so. She walked the earth and extracted an oath from each thing that she encountered, never to harm Balder the Beautiful. She spoke to fire, and it promised it would not burn him. Water gave its oath to never drown him. Iron would not cut him, nor would any other metal. Stones promised never to bruise his skin. Frigg spoke to trees, to beasts, to birds, to all things that creeped and fly and crawled. Each creature, that is, kind, would never hurt Balder. The trees agreed, each after its own kind, oak and ash, pine and beech, birch and fir, that their wood would never be used to harm Balder. She conjured diseases and spoke to them, each of the diseases that could hurt or wound a person agreed it would never touch Balder. Nothing was too insignificant for Frigg to ask, save only the mistletoe, a creeping plant that lives on another tree. It seemed too small, too young, too insignificant, and she passed it by. And when everything had sworn its oath not to harm her son, Frigg returned to Asgard. Balder is safe, she told the Aesir. Nothing will hurt him. All of them doubted her, even Balder. Frigg picked up a stone and whipped it towards her son. The stone skipped around him. Balder laughed with delight, as if he were the sun. The gods smiled, and then each one of them threw their weapons at Balder, and each of them was astonished and amazed. Swords could not touch him. Spears would not pierce his flesh. All the gods were relieved and happy. There were only two faces in Asgard that were not radiant with joy. Loki was not smiling or laughing. He watched the gods hack at Balder with axes and swords, or drop enormous rocks on him, or try to strike him with huge wooden clubs, and they laughed as the clubs and swords and rocks and axes avoided Balder, or touched him like a gentle feather. Loki brooded and slipped away into the shadows. The other was Balder's brother, Hod, who was blind. What is happening? Asked blind Hod. Will someone please tell me what is happening? But nobody talked to Hod. He listened to the sounds of merrymaking and joy, and he wished he could take part. You must be very proud of your son, he said kindly to Frigg. Frigg did not recognise the woman. But the woman beamed when she looked at Balder, and Frigg was indeed proud of her son. Everyone loved him, after all. But they won't hurt him, the poor darling, throwing things at him like that. If I were his mother, I'd be afraid for my son. They will not hurt him, said Frigg. No weapon can hurt Balder, no disease, no rock, no tree. I've taken an oath from all things. That's good, said the kindly woman. I'm pleased. But you sure you didn't miss anything? Not a one. All the trees. The only thing I did not bother with was mistletoe. It's a creeper that grows on trees west of Valhalla. But it's young and too small to even do harm. You could not make a club from mistletoe. My, said the kindly woman. Mistletoe, eh? Well, truth to tell, I wouldn't have bothered with it either. Much too weedy. The kindly woman had begun to remind Frigg of someone. But before the goddess could think of it, Tyr held up an enormous rock with his good left hand, and held it high above its head, and crashed it down on Balder's chest, and it disintegrated into dust before it even touched the shining god. When Frigg turned back to the kindly woman, she was already gone. And Frigg thought no more about it, not then. Loki, now in his own form, travelled to the west of Valhalla. He stopped by a huge oak tree, and here there was a clump of green mistletoe and leaves, and pale white berries hung from the oak. Seeming even more insignificant when seen next to the great grandeur of the oak tree that grew directly out of the bark of the oak tree, Loki examined the berries and the stems and the leaves, and he thought about poisoning Balder with mistletoe berries, but that seemed too simple, too straightforward. If he was going to harm Balder, he was going to hurt as many people as possible. Blind Hod stood to one side, listening to the merriment and the joy and the shouts coming from over the way. Hod was strong, even if he was sightless, one of the strongest of the gods, and usually Balder was good at making certain that he was included. This time, even Balder had forgotten about him. "You look sad," said a familiar voice. It was Loki's. "It's hard, Loki. Everyone is having such a good time. I hear them laughing, and Balder, my beloved brother, he sounds so happy. I wish I could be part of it." "That is the easiest thing in the world to remedy," said Loki. Hod could not see the expression on his face, but Loki sounded so helpful, so friendly, and all of the gods knew Loki was clever. "Hold out your hand." Hod did so, and Loki put something into it and closed Hod's fingers around it. "It is a little wooden dart I made. I will bring you closer to Balder, and you will point it towards him, and you should throw it at him as hard as you can. Throw it with all your might, and all the gods will laugh, and Balder will know that even his blind brother has taken part in the day of triumph." Loki walked Hod through the people, towards the hubbub. "Here," said Loki, "this is a good place to stand. Now, when I tell you, throw the dart." "It is only a little dart," said Hod wistfully. "I wish I were throwing a spear or a rock." "A little dart will do," said Loki. The tip is sharp enough. Now throw it there, like I told you." A mighty cheer and a laugh. A club made of knot thorn bush wood, studded with sharp iron nails, was strung by Thor into Balder's face. The club skipped by and over his head at the last moment. Thor looked as if it were dancing, and it was very comical. "Now," whispered Loki, "now, while they are laughing." Hod threw the dart of mistletoe, just as he had been told, and he expected to hear cheers and laughter. Nobody laughed. Nobody cheered. There was silence. He heard gasps and low murmuring. "Why is nobody laughing? Why is no one cheering me?" asked Blind Hod. "I threw a dart. It was neither big nor heavy, but you must have seen it. Balder, my brother, why are you not laughing?" He heard wailing then, high and keen and awful. He knew that voice. It was his mother who wailed. "Balder, my son! Oh, Balder, oh, my son!" she wailed. It was then that Hod knew his dart had hit home. "How terrible! How sad! You have killed your brother," said Loki. But he did not sound sad. He did not sound sad at all. Balder lay dead, pierced by the mistletoe dart. The gods gathered, weeping and tearful. Odin said nothing, save only, "No vengeance will be taken on Hod, not yet, not right now, not at this time. We're in a place of holy peace." Frigg said, "Who among you wants to win my good graces by going to hell? Perhaps you will let Balder return to the world. Even hell could not be so cruel as to keep him." She thought for a moment. Hel was, after all, Loki's daughter, and we will offer her a ransom for her to give us back Balder. Is there anyone willing to go to Hel's kingdom? You may not return." The gods looked at each other, and then one of them raised his hand. This was Hermod, called the Nimble, Odin's attendant, and the fastest and most daring of the young gods. "I will go to Hel," he said. "I will bring back Balder the Beautiful." They brought forth Selfnir, Odin's stallion, the 8-legged horse. Hermod mounted it and prepared to ride down, ever down to greet Hel in the high place, where the dead only go. As Hermod rode into darkness, the gods prepared Baldur's funeral. They took his corpse and they placed it on Baldur's ship. They wanted to launch the ship and burn it, but they could not move it from the shore. They pushed and heaved, even Thor, but the ships sat on the shore unmoving. Only Baldur had been able to launch the ship, and now he was gone. The gods sent for a giantess who came riding on an enormous wolf with a serpent for reins. She went and launched the ship, but her push was so violent that the ship rolled and burst into flames, and the earth shook, and the wave was terrifying. "I ought to kill her," said Thor, still singing from his own failure to launch the ship, and he grasped the handle of Mjolnir at his side. "She shows disrespect." "You will do nothing of the kind," said the other gods. "I'm not happy about this," said Thor. "I'm going to kill someone soon, just to relieve the tension. You'll see." Baldur's wife, Nanna, saw her husband's body carried away, and she wailed. They carried her to the funeral pyre, and they placed her body beside it, as her heart gave out. Baldur, out of respect, Odin placed his arm ring onto the pyre. These were miraculous rings that were made for him by the dwarves, which every 9 days would drop eight of the rings of equal purity and beauty. Then Odin whispered a secret into Baldur's dead ear, and what Odin whispers none but Baldur would ever know. Hermod the Nimble rode for 9 days and 9 nights, without stopping. He rode deeper, and he rode through gathering darkness, from gloom to twilight, to night, to pitch black, starless darkness. And all he could see in the darkness was some gold glittering far ahead of him. Closer he rode, and closer. The light grew brighter. It was gold, and it was the thatch of a bridge that across the Gallia River, across which all must travel who die. He slowed to a walk as they crossed the bridge, which swung and shook beneath him. "What is your name?" said a woman's voice. "Who are your kin? What are you doing in the land of the dead?" Hermod said nothing. He reached the far end of the bridge where a maiden stood. She was pale and very beautiful. She looked at him as if she had never seen anything like it before. Her name was Modgud, and she was guardian of the bridge. "Yesterday, enough dead men to fill 5 kingdoms crossed this bridge, but you alone can shake it more than they did. Though they were men with horses beyond all counting, I could see the red blood beneath your skin. You are not the colour of the dead. They are grey and green and white and blue. Your skin has the life of it. Who are you, and why are you travelling to hell?" "I am Hermod. I am son of Odin, and I am riding to hell on Odin's horse to find Baldur. Have you seen him?" "No one who has seen him could ever forget it," she said. "Baldur the Beautiful crossed the bridge 9 days ago, and he went to Hell's great hall." "I thank you," said Hermod. "That is where I want to go." "It is downwards and northwards," she told him. "Always go down, keep travelling north, and you will reach Hell's gate." Hermod rode to the great hall of the dead, dismounted and walked inside. Baldur, his brother, was seated at the head of the table, at the seat of honour. Baldur was pale, his skin was no more the colour of the world. He sat and drank the mead of hell, and ate her food. When he saw Hermod, he told him to sit beside him and spend the night at the table. On the other side of Baldur was Nanna, his wife, and next to her, not in the best of tempers, was a dwarf called Lit. In Hell's world, the sun never rises, and the day never begins. Hermod looked across the hall, and he saw a woman of peculiar beauty. The right side of her face was the colour of flesh, but the left side of her body was dark and ruined, like that of a weak old corpse that you'd find hanging from a tree in the forest or in the snow. And Hermod knew that this was Hel, Loki's daughter, and whom the Allfather had sent to rule over the lands. "I have come for Baldur," said Hermod to Hel. "Odin himself sent me, and all things there are mourning him. You must give him back to us." Hel was impressed. One eye stared at Hermod, the other sunken and dead. I am Hel, she said simply. The dead come to me, and they do not return to the lands above. Why should I let Baldur go? All things mourn him. His death unites all in misery. Gods and frost giants, dwarfs and elves. The animals mourn him, the trees, even the metal weeps. The stones dream that brave Baldur will return to the lands that they know the sun. Let him go. Hel said nothing. She watched Baldur with her mismatched eyes. And then she sighed. He is the most beautiful thing, and I think the best thing ever to come to my realm. But it is truly as you said. If all things mourn for Baldur, if all things love him, then I shall give him back to you. Hermod threw himself at her feet. That is noble of you, thank you, great queen. She looked down at him. Get up, she said. I have not said I will give him back. This is your task, Hermod. Go back and ask them, all of the gods and all of the giants, the rocks and plants, ask everything. Ask everything to weep and mourn. I will give Baldur back to him if they mourn. But if one creature will not cry or speak against him, then he will stay with me forever. Hermod got to his feet. Baldur led him from the hall, and he gave Hermod Odin's ring to return to Odin, as evidence that Hermod had been to Hel. Nanna gave him a linen robe for Frigg, and a golden ring for Fulir, Frigg's handmaiden. Lint just grimaced and made rude gestures. Hermod clambered back onto the horse. He crossed the bridge, and eventually he saw daylight once more. In Asgard, Hermod returned the arm ring to Odin, and the Allfather told him of what had happened. While Hermod was in the underworld, Odin had a son to replace Baldur. The son was Vali, and he was the son of Odin and the goddess Rind. Before he was a day old, the baby had found and slew Hod, so Baldur's death was avenged. The Asir sent message across the world. There were messengers of the Asir rode like the wind, and they asked each thing they encountered if they wept for Baldur, and so that Baldur could be free from Hel's world. The women wept, and the men, and the children, and the animals. Birds of the air wept for Baldur, as did the earth and the trees and the stones. Even the metals. All things wept for Baldur. The messengers returned from their mission, triumphant and overjoyed. Baldur would soon be back among the Asir. They rested on a mountain, on a ledge beside a cave, and they ate their food and they drank their mead, and they laughed and joked. "Who is that?" called a voice from inside the cave. And an elderly giantess came out. There was something vaguely familiar about her, but none of the messengers were certain. "I am Thunuk," she said, which means gratitude. "Why are you here?" "We have asked each thing if they would weep for Baldur, who is dead. Beautiful Baldur was killed by his blind brother. For each of us misses Baldur as we would miss the sun in the sky, were it never to shine again, and each of us weep for him." The giantess scratched her nose and cleared her throat and spat on a rock. "Old Thunuk won't weep for Baldur," she said bluntly. "Alive or dead, old Odin's son brought me nothing but misery and aggravation. I'm glad he's gone. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Let Hel keep him." Then she shuffled back into the darkness of her cave and was lost to sight. The messengers returned to Asgard and told the gods what they had seen, and that they had failed in their mission. But there was one creature that did not weep for Baldur, and did not want him to return, an old giantess in a cave on a mountain. And by then they also had realised that who Thunuk reminded them of. She had moved and talked very much like Loki, son of Laufey. "I expect it was Loki in disguise," said Thor. "Of course it was Loki, it's always Loki." Thor hefted his hammer, Mjolnir, and he gathered a group of the gods to look for Loki to take their revenge. But the crafty troublemaker was nowhere to be seen. He was hiding far away from Asgard, hugging himself in glee at his own cleverness. and waiting for the first to die. That was the death of Baldur. That is also one of my favourite stories. It's truly an interesting story about a mother's love as Frigg tried everything to save her son, but she overlooked one small thing and it caused his death. It's also very interesting that they punish Hod for his mistake, even though he's tricked by Loki. Odin's new son still kills him, which Odin knew about because he knows everything, but he still let him be punished. Bit suspicious there, Odin. I never liked Odin. Odin's the bad guy in history. But did you enjoy that one? I liked that one a lot. Oh, my voice. My voice is definitely going now. Oh. Yes, I definitely like that one. That one was also, you like it was a book moment. Thank you, Ethan. That one was also in the play that I watched. They did a little section about Baldur and about how Frigg went to try and find a solution to save her son. I think it's interesting as well because a lot of the Norse mythology, you think it revolves around the men, around Thor and Loki and Odin, but a lot of the time it's the women in the background that do a lot more, like Frigg. She went around the entire world to find a way to save her son, to keep him from harm, and she failed because she missed one little thing. I guess that's a story of parental guidance, I guess. A very interesting one. I also find it quite amusing that they were like, yes, we could definitely get everyone to weep for Baldur. Also, Loki exists, so that not gonna happen. Oh, that was a nice one. I think that'll be the last story I read to save my poor voice. As you can hear, it's slowly going. I think I'll only do these two. It has been an hour though, an hour of reading, so that's a lot. But yes, do you guys have any questions about Norse mythology or about the stories I read today? Happy to talk about anything like that. Any questions about any of the particular characters in the stories? Obviously, if you don't know Norse mythology, sometimes it can be a bit confusing. How has it been an hour? Time does fly. It flies when you are having fun and when you're just relaxing. I think this is quite nice. I think I will do this every week. Do an afternoon chill reading stream, or maybe a night stream, maybe like a late night stream where I read some stories for you guys to relax and sleep to, perhaps. Oh, I've got hiccups now. Oh, I'm also slowly getting over my nerves of reading on stream. It's a bit nerve-wracking, I have to say, especially because I am very aware of my stutter and of my slurring of certain words, but it's getting better. I think for next time I'm going to pre-read a lot of the stories a lot more, so I can learn it a bit better like a script. Dibs on Captain Underpants as the first book. Ethan, you know what, I'll let you one day come onto stream so you can read Captain Underpants. I have a few books I might read on stream. I've got a few short stories. I've also got a few scripts. I was talking to my friend Fraser about this, the potential of reading some plays, some short sections of plays on stream with a few friends. For example, I've got stuff like, I've got The Crucible, which is a very good one. I've got Much Ado About Nothing, I've got The Tempest, I've got Midsummer's Night's Dream, and I think it'd be pretty interesting to read through with my friends on stream, and act out, in a sense, voice act out anyway, the plays. I think that'd be pretty fun. I also have like a few short stories, like Edgar Allan Poe short stories, The Telltale Heart, The Raven, that I'd like to read at some point. I think, where are we? We're nearly in October. I might read them for a Halloween thing. When's Halloween? Let's have a think. What day does Halloween fall onto? Because I want to do something for Halloween. So I might read some horror stuff, which, I meant what day, as in the actual day. I know it's October 31st. October 31st falls on a Monday. Okay. So we could definitely do a Monday stream. We could possibly do a Sunday late night stream and then a Monday stream. So we could do late night, the 30th, read horror stories, and then maybe on the 31st play a horror game or something like that. I think that'd be nice. But yes, I definitely want to do more reading. It's very fun and it's a lot more relaxing. I sometimes get a bit anxious about what to say on stream and how to keep a stream going, but this is I just have to read. I don't have to make anything up, which is good. But yes, this has been a very nice chillax stream. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to end stream now. This is only a short one. This is my chillax day. I'm going to be doing some editing this evening. And this will go up onto YouTube. I'm going to edit it so I can cut each of the stories and just upload them as their own little separate thing, I think. So you can listen to them on YouTube if you just want to listen to me reading stories. I also might record them like more professionally, where I'm not stuttering and making mistakes, if people want that sort of thing. If not, I won't bother. It's only if people want to listen to me reading, I guess. I also need to find some more appropriate music. I think some of the music in between was a little bit odd when I was describing someone dying. Just a little bit. But anyway, thank you very much for coming to today's stream. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you tomorrow. I'm going to be doing Incursion, SMP, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be going to the end with my friend Fraser, which is going to go so very well and I will not die. We'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes. But yes, good night. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow.